And Ramanathan, thanks a lot for joining at the Middle Road. I'm deeply honored to be with you.
Thank you so much.
You're the mission director at Atal Innovation Mission, the flagship initiative set up by Niti Aayog to promote innovation and entrepreneurship in India. You're also on the board of directors at Defense Innovation Organization and Indo-US Science and Technology Forum. Further, you're the chairman of NZTE Bleachhead India Advisory Board. Now, first, before we start the kick-ass interview, I'll just talk a bit about Atal Innovation Mission. I think it's doing one of the most fantastic jobs in the world. Atal Innovation Mission is the driving force in promoting startup ecosystem along with boosting policy implementation for micro, small and medium enterprises as well as startups. AIM, as we call it, innovation within all actors in the society, including academia, non-profits, research organizations, Agri and Medical research to boost socio-economic well-being for all. It works as a collaborator and a single point of contact, which is, I think, the best thing about here is like works as a single point of contact in enabling socio-economic reforms, generating measurable social change and impact. Now, since Atal Mission is doing so many things, and we maybe will follow a top-down approach, we go to each policies as Atal Mission is implementing. But before I start, we go with the top question which comes to everybody's mind. Now, there are a lot of initiatives taken by Atal Mission, which have been, taken to have a very long-lasting, sustainable social change and impact within the society. Now, today, India is the third largest ecosystem in the world. Now, that's not a small feat. It's a major achievement with the present government, which it's done over the last few years only. It's happened in very short period of time. And which is, of course, thanks to the policies taken by the present Indian government. So, we have leapfrogged from to actually 63rd position from 142 position in 2014 in ease of doing business, which is of course through very proactive and market friendly technology enabled processes and policies with an underlying foundation in best sustainable practices. Now, before we delve into specifics of policies, do share your holistic journey in achieving this milestone. How do you say, what were the key, aspects which have come?
So, first of all, Nishant, thank you for sort of a very comprehensive introduction to this Atal Innovation Mission. And I've been very fortunate to get associated with this movement in India. Though I come from the private sector, I got this opportunity to get associated as the mission director to drive this mission, which is actually a concept of the Prime Minister office and under the auspices of the Niti Aayog. And of course, Niti Aayog is focused on how it can nationally transform India. It's a national institution for transforming India. And from this perspective, innovation and entrepreneurship is extraordinarily important from an Indian context. We have 1.3 billion people, as you're aware, and we have 1.4 million schools in our country. We have 10,500 engineering and related institutions in our country. We have 39,000 colleges. And we have 150 million young students who will be entering into the workplace over the next 5 to 10 years. And the whole of the country is riding on the hope that these people are going to lead them to a better future. Now, in order to do that, we have to ensure that we create an ecosystem of innovation and entrepreneurship in our country that is going to create thousands of job creators. You cannot just depend on existing organizations to be able to create jobs. You have to create new job creators. And for that, you need to have extraordinary capability and a very holistic approach to ensure that people are able to find the ecosystem for being able to realize their innovation potential, whether it be at the schools level, at the university level, at the industry level, at a NGO level, at a state level, district level, and at a national level. So this is the holistic approach that Atal Innovation Mission has adopted to ensure that first and foremost, we create problem-solving innovative mindsets. You cannot become a nation of entrepreneurs and a nation of startups without having more and more people understand what it means to do problem-solving, what it means to be an innovator, and acquiring a problem-solving innovative mindset. So this is, for example, the reason why we have started at school level. Because the Atal Tinkering Labs are an initiative to ensure that thousands of school students or millions of school students don't just get exposed to rote learning, which has served us well so far. It has enabled us to be the nation that we are. We have, for example, I've been a product of the rote learning educational system. But what brought us here is not going to take us there. We have today a $180 billion ITES industry. And that has been enabled because of the great passion for knowledge acquisition in young Indian students and Indian families. But now we are also living in a world where technology is changing the very shape of the world, the way you are experiencing the world, the way the world is experiencing you. And so how do we use all of this to create problem-solving, innovative thinking in our young students? And that is how the Adult Tinkering Labs, for example, has been
brought in, right? And just to add on, you talked about Niti Aayog. Niti Aayog's one of the most fantastic initiatives has been like, which I'll say a sort of a positive nudging to create a benchmark index. This never been done before. How the states are doing in terms of sustainable development goals. They sort of map it to each index and they create. So I think that itself, the way the whole top-down approach of getting technology within the domain, using disruptive technology for doing a lot good.
Absolutely. See, it's very important for us. Only what you measure you can improve, and therefore the Niti Aayog has very strongly focused on how do we create. First of all, we collect the data related to various states, various districts. The Niti Aayog has done a fantastic job in identifying the 115 aspirational districts in our country. These are districts which rank low in terms of the ability to provide the right type of hygiene, health support, educational support, and so on. So there are a number of parameters that have been drawn, which are very important for the welfare of a state and the well-being of a state and its districts. So this has helped Niti Aayog, as well as it helps India to focus on where we can improve, where we can replicate some of the best practices. Some of the districts are very advanced in their performance. So what do we learn from them and how can we replicate them? And then there are some who are in between and who need a little nudge to be able to move into the high-performing states. And if you see some of the problem, while we are one of the fastest growing economies of the world, which is a fantastic thing from an incubation, support, VC support and all of that, that capability is growing in this country, which is very much required if you want to help entrepreneurs. But at the same time, there are many challenges that we have. Affordable housing, 22% of our country is still below the poverty line, 44% of our country is still agri-economy based, and there is a huge migration happening, urban migration happening. There will be problems of water management, affordable housing, clean drinking water for all, electricity for all. So these are all also challenges. How do we view these challenges as opportunities and inspire our entrepreneurs and inspire our young students to take these challenges head on, convert them into opportunities for startups, entrepreneurial initiatives, and be able to solve the problem, and thereby also create a huge employment capability within the country.
Right. Yeah. So one of the best things, and as we come across in the whole interview, is like how you're putting each actor within the system. We'll come to Atal Tinkering Labs. I think it's very well thought, very futuristic looking. So what you are doing is not only that you're helping at the present moment of time, but you're taking what the future would look like. That's what you're saying. India has to move towards urbanization. It's about 30% urbanized, and we should at some time in future be almost 50% urbanized. And how you're looking at some of the things like waste management. Okay, we need to think of it right now. So that's really good. Now, so just to sort of bit add on before I go to specific policies. Now it's assured that you will be among the top 50 in terms of ease of index. But to move to maybe top 30 would be a bit of a we'll have to have some also policy iterative policy measures coming in. So would you like to share about the vision of moving into top 30, which I think we will also achieve it, but what would be going forward some of the things which
I think the vision of going into the top 30 or the top 25 is a very realistic and a possible vision for our country. We have a youth force which is among the finest in the world. Indians have proved themselves everywhere, whether you have a Satya Nadella heading Microsoft, a Sundar Pichai heading Google, a Shantanu Narayan heading Adobe. And these are people who, when they have found the ecosystem, have been able to make enormous progress. The same thing is what we have to enable here. And that's what the Atal Innovation Mission and other innovation initiatives are all about. how do we create that same ecosystem? But also, if you see, in order to reach this vision, there has to be a very strong collaboration between public, private sector.
Very important.
Without this collaboration, it cannot be just a government-led initiative, or it cannot be just a mandate. A mandate is not going to achieve anything. There has to be value seen on both the sides, the public sector, the private sector, the NGOs. We have to work together. And today we have, for example, in Atal Innovation Mission, every one of our initiative has a very strong combination and a collaboration with private partners, with multinationals, with the local industry. For example, the community innovation centers that we are setting about in the unserved, underserved regions of our country, that is along with a partnership. So the government will give 2.5 crores of grant, and a private partner, or it could be an NGO, or it could be the state, they will bring in a matching funding, and together we set up a community innovation center which is going to serve the needs of the local community. And the needs of the local community in India are different depending on where they are located. It could be the coastal districts, it could be a hilly district, it could be a tier 2, tier 3 city. There are different capabilities there, there are different opportunities there. And we want to harness those opportunities and convert them into replicable innovations which have a commercial impact or a socio-economic impact.
Right. And we will come. ARISE is a fantastic policy which you have. And just to sort of add on, about 65% of the Indians are at less than the age of 35. And,
yes.
And for the first time, I think we are making a very well-rounded youth coming in, and they are going abroad. They were doing in India. They're going abroad and, breaking all the benchmarks. So now we come to a very specific question on Atal, Tinkering Labs. And just to sort of give a brief description, it's a very holistic, kick-ass holistic national mission of bringing world-class innovation to children at a very early age of 12 years. Yeah. So now you have allotted a budget of about 1,000 crores in that. I mean, it's like almost on roughly estimates $141 million to target about 10,000 schools, which was just the target last year, which you have, done great. Is like you're bringing state-of-art technology like 3D printers, robotics for workstations for children. To date, you have Atal Tinkering Labs, which have been stations for children around the schools in India, with almost 14,000 plus of them, and we have about 4,840 of them already operational in 650 districts, and maybe by the time we are coming, it's almost approximately 5,000, which I see. And this has impacted more than 2 million students.
Yes.
And that is about, 2 million students having access to lab. Now, this is very profound because one, at a very younger age, you're putting a very strong foundation. You're nurturing them so that tomorrow, not only will they could be going and having more startups or, coming out with ideas, but going into academics and research, which is the very foundation of a world-class civilization if you want to happen. So this is a very profound thinking. What I would like to know, like, how did you, what brought in such a, futuristic, visionary thinking? How did you come across about your implementation of, different dashboards? So first, do elaborate about the policy.
Yeah. So the Atal Tinkering Labs is actually, in a manner of speaking, a game-changing educational initiative. We looked at, the world is changing. Like I said, technology is making its impact. All the new solutions in the world are coming up with some component of the technology, whether it is 3D printing, robotics, and so on. The most important thing is all these technologies have also become affordable, available, accessible, and advanced. So you have the price of this technology coming down. You have more and more solutions coming up on top of that. And they can actually trigger problem solving and innovative solutions much faster and much more easier than what was there in the past. We looked at the entire schooling system. I mean, first is, if you want to create this innovative mindset, if you don't have this innovative mindset in our young school students, it's very difficult for them to get the feel of what it becomes, what it means to become an entrepreneur, a product creator, and so on. So we felt that and another thing is, our education system has emphasized a lot on rote learning. It's going to be a little difficult to change that emphasis. But can we bring something laterally so that we also stimulate the problem-solving innovation quotient of the student? Can they get an opportunity to understand not just the theory which is being taught in the class in physics, chemistry, maths, they study about satellites and they study about algorithms and all. Nowadays, the school systems are very advanced. How do you apply them in actually creating solutions? And how do you promote a research-oriented mindset? Because a research-oriented mindset is very important. So we thought that the Atal Tinkering Labs would provide a perfect platform, because today all of these technologies are available. So for just 20 lakhs of grant that the government gives to every school who successfully applies for an Atal Tinkering Lab, 12 lakhs of that goes towards establishing the Atal Tinkering Lab, Innovation Lab environment. We wanted the student not to be pressurized by marks or by credits and so on, but to just have purely the joy of problem solving, tinkering, innovation. We want them to tinker and in an atmosphere of fun. And that's what we have enabled to create through the Atal Tinkering Lab. So the students come in, we ask the students to join in small groups. We tell them, when you're coming from your home to your school, when you're going from your home to the nearest playground, you go to the theater, you go to the hospital, just observe the world around you and identify problems that are there. If you are in a rural community, go and see a farm and see what are the problems in the farm. So the students start acquiring a problem identification mindset first of all. So they start looking at, they're in search of problems. And then we say, you can solve the problem. And when the student actually creates a prototype of an innovation using that lab equipment, the tremendous confidence that every student gets that I have been the creator of this solution, or I've been part of the creation of this solution. That self-confidence that everyone gets. You and I did not have the opportunity to exercise that creative potential that may have existed in us. But we never had the tools the technologies, the environment, the mentors, the teachers who could guide us on this. But today we are making that available through our Tinkering Labs. And the second thing which is very important is the Tinkering Labs provides a platform, a futuristic platform on which, as new technologies get rolled out into the marketplace, you can make do-it-yourself kits and introduce them in these Tinkering Labs. So, one of the big problems we have had in our educational system is there has always been this gap between what the industry needs at any point in time and what the schools and the universities teach. By these Tinkering Labs and when they go into the universities, their appetite for learning to learn, getting abreast of new technologies, and through the do-it-yourself kits, getting to know and getting familiar with those becomes very high. And so when the student moves out to the university, he has already acquired a confidence that they can create solutions. They have entrepreneurial thinking in their mindset. And when you make available innovation labs and incubators in the universities, which is what we are now enabling, we are setting up hundreds of incubators across the country in universities and in research institutions, so that the incubator can foster 25 to 30 startups every 2 years. And we will give a grant of 10 crores to these universities. So when the student who has come out from Atal Tinkering Labs joins the university, he now finds a platform for creating a startup of his or her choice. And that is a fantastic ability that you are enabling. And once you do that, even when they go into the industry, even if they become a job seeker, the thirst and the requirement in their mind that they can be an entrepreneur still will linger on. And so they'll approach their job in a different manner, that potentially I can use all the learnings that I get on a job to become an entrepreneur at some point in time. This is the mindset change that we are trying to evolve. Also in this journey, there are three important things. One is the teacher and the school should participate in this, because many times our schools and our teachers and unfortunately our parents also judge the performance of a student only by the marks that they get in a class. Whereas you need to become a problem solver in life. And if you are able to get them also change their mindset, suddenly you are finding the school teachers seeing, hey, this student whom I thought was not a great academic performer is actually a wonderful innovator. He is able to create solutions which even the first ranking or the top 10 ranking students are not able to create. And so you now look at the student in a different light, and you start giving the importance that the student needs in order to be able to unleash the potential they have within them.
Right. No, I think you have actually discussed something very profound. You're absolutely right. At a young age, give a hands-on experience. give them problem solving skills, which is so important, whatever job you do.
Right.
And I think we are getting the best, like the pedagogical change which is happening in India. I mean, the Scandinavians influenced it, then of course the Americans wanted to, put in more practical approach, a lot of European countries. And I think you're absolutely right there is you have to have practical aspects. And if you do it at the earlier stage, you are actually building the DNA within the, I would say, the whole community in India, within the whole civilization.
And I just want to add that we are not just installing the equipment and hoping that everything will happen. We actually launched thousands of tinkering challenges called Atal Tinkering Challenges. So every school, we also train the teachers how you can launch challenges in your own school. Okay, so that the students are provoked into how do I take this challenge and convert it into an innovation. We run tinkering fests at a regional level. So many schools come together and they share best practices. We would in these tinkering fests, it's an atmosphere of fun. It is a 3-day fest where there is a lot of learning, creative design, creative thinking, design thinking, teamwork, workshops. Our corporate partners from, like for example, it would be from Intel or Microsoft or IBM or TCS or Wipro. I mean, corporate partners will come together. They will conduct workshops with the students. And we also run tinkering marathons at a national level every year. And in this tinkering marathon, we actually give them challenges and we tell them, so for example, in the last tinkering marathon, we gave them 11 challenges, healthcare sector, affordable housing, clean drinking water for all, climate change, and every one of them we say, when you are creating a solution, align themselves with the sustainable development goals. So today, there's 2.5 million students that you're talking about who get exposed to Atal Tinkering Labs, also get exposed to sustainable development goals. Today they know
absolutely fabulous.
It is in their lingo. So they say, so this is addressing number 17 of the sustainable development goal. And that's something, it's a delightful thing to watch. The marathon winners, the top 100 marathon, in the last tinkering marathon that we ran, we had 50,000 students participating. More than 8,000 innovations got created by the students. There was a tinkering marathon day where these innovations were displayed. A local community of judges evaluated the top 10, and these top 10 are then submitted to Atal Innovation Mission, and we select the top 100 out of those. And each innovation would have a 3 to 4% team. And these top 100 innovations get special recognition through boot camps, innovation boot camps that we run for them, along with our corporate partners, whether it be an advanced lab in our incubators. All our incubators participate in this. Also partners like IBM and Intel and so on, they participate in this. So it's a step above. As these students start doing well, we want to make sure that they keep rising in their level of awareness of what great innovations are all about, and inspire them to do that.
You've discussed very systematic, very specific, achievements, and I really, it's very credible. There's no doubt in India, specifically of the boot camps. I think that's a huge enabler, which was missing in India, and especially in the last 3 years, I've seen in India, it's exponentially grown in, like, not only students. I was recently in Pune Startup Fest where I was moderating, and this is something I'd never seen in India before. I mean, during, at least wasn't there visible some time back, and it's been explosion across the whole of India. Now, you have also very conveniently leveraged technology. For example, you have these dashboards which implements. So what was the idea behind one I would like to know about that, and secondly is, like, you have also, what idea goes behind shortlisting of schools, or even your partnerships? You have got partnerships, UNICEF, you have with Singapore government. So could you just also highlight a bit about
So when we launched the Atal Innovation Mission initiatives, we realized that we have to reach every part of the country, and in order to do that, we have to leverage digital technology to its hilt. Otherwise, it's not physically possible. I mean, the team here, Atal Innovation Mission team, is a fairly small team. We have only about 25 people who are the core team. So for us, it was very important to build, first of all, a network of partnerships across the country.
Just to interrupt you, if you have a 25, I think it's time we could have a much bigger team, because they've done a phenomenal job. And I think if with a very small team, I mean, you have such a huge impact. I think with a larger team, it could be global.
We are planning to scale it up, and we will. But again, no matter what the size of our team is going to be, this has to work with a network of partners who are supportive of this entire initiative. So this was one very important thing. Second is the digital technology. So we have developed all our material for Atal Tinkering Labs, because we want this to be self-sustaining, not dependent on just a few people, but the process and the tools should make it self-sustaining. So we have created dashboards, real-time dashboards, where every school is able to enter details about how this tinkering lab is being utilized. How many students are accessing the lab? How many innovation projects have been initiated? How many innovation projects have got completed? How many mentors are associated with the tinkering lab? How many training sessions and knowledge sharing sessions have happened? How many IP has been created? We train the students on recognizing what patenting is all about, the importance of intellectual property rights. Right. Yeah. Because we want the children, and you will, not so surprising, we have very bright children in India, and already we have 20 to 24 students who are launching startups, or whose idea has been good enough and innovation has been good enough to be adopted by some of our partners or some of our incubators to convert them into startups. So teaching them on IP is very important. And all these real-time and all our tutorials, our best practices and all is available online. We also created a Facebook Atal Innovation Mission page, so that students can upload all their innovations into the Facebook page, and it is available to be seen by others. So there is a lot of best practice that gets exchanged through online material. All the innovations are submitted online to us when we evaluate. We use social media very extensively in reaching out to the students, and we have a number of online sessions, Facebook live sessions, mentoring sessions, and so on. And one important thing that we also did was, and this is something unique that I'm really proud of in terms of how Indian society wants to give back. We established a portal called Mentors of Change. And
we're coming on to that's a very good.
So it's a national portal. So I'll talk to you a little more about that. But through that, more than 10,000 mentors have registered in our network, and these are all professionals from companies, industries, academia, researchers, final year students, and they have volunteered to spend their time mentoring young students in the tinkering labs. And we already have close to 4,500 at this point in time, mentors directly associated with other tinkering labs across the country.
So you spoke about technology, and I think one of the most revolutionary aspects is like how quickly you can open a startup. Gone are the days. I mean, 2 days I was able to sort of register. You have an online portal. You're getting all the actors. Even in a startup, there's something which is getting replicated at every level at different sites. So since we talked about tinkering labs, now the first, of course, the most important aspect comes in the incubation centers. Now you have Atal incubation centers which are actually kickstarting and sustaining startup ecosystem, providing a support to entrepreneurs at a very early stage, specifically when we're talking about value of death, and that comes in 2 stages. Now, if you look at the Startup India Vision 2024, its plans to generate 50,000 new startups, generating at least an additional of 2 million jobs. I mean, jobs would be, I feel, much more than 2 million. 2 million would be a very conservative figure. Now, Atal Innovation Mission has already shortlisted 102 incubators covering 23 states, out of which 47 already been funded. Now, the most important enabler for any startup is a well-rounded incubators. This is where, which we have come out in a major way, which is so much good. And we'll come out, not only are these pillars of just incubators, but they are doing a fantastic job in technology, deep tech, deep science, a lot of other aspects. So please do elaborate on the critical parameters which are promoting these incubators of science and technology, and what are the key challenges you faced while you are implementing these, policies nationally when you are doing.
So as you rightly pointed out, Nishant, India is becoming a startup nation, and we are one of the fastest growing startup nations of the world. But it's very important for the startups to be supported at different stages of their life cycle. There are the valleys of death, as they are popularly known, because of the lack of proper support, whether it is mentoring support, venture capital support, business planning, strategy support, HR support, access to the right technology lab or the research lab, access to specialists. Because of this, a great idea does not convert itself into a great product. And we want to make sure that these valleys of death are crossed over or eliminated or mitigated. for the startups. And that's how the idea of setting up world-class incubators sprang in the Atal Innovation Mission. Of course, incubators have been existing in India for quite some time, but what we wanted was a slightly different approach. Number one, the incubator, we wanted to create a network of incubators where the pool of resources, whether it is mentors or venture capitalists or specialists in various domains, becomes a shareable resource. So many incubators which have grown in the country, they still operate in silos. And we wanted to break that silo concept because more is a power to the startups. And startups can then start reaching across to multiple incubators or to other startups who are in the similar area so that they can learn from each other. The second thing is we opened it up both to the universities as well as to the private sector. So 70% of our incubators are in universities, 30% are private sector or even investment capital firms or even an NGO which wants to operate an incubator. But our fundamental approach is all of these are, most of them are deep tech incubators, or they allow tech to be, or they use tech in order to create livelihoods and entrepreneurs. So, for example, 3 of our incubators are livelihood entrepreneur generation. They use technology for creating these entrepreneurs and training them on newer emerging technology. So, for example, robotic based tailoring, that's now catching on, and you have how do you use that in order to improve your productivity and so on, or IoT based technology for various purposes, whether it be waste management or whether it be reuse and so on and so forth. So we are encouraging that. We have today launched about 102, we have selected 102 incubators across the country, out of which 70 will be operational by the end of March or April, and 47, as you said, are already fully operational. And each of them get a grant of 10 crores, up to 10 crores, over a period of 3 to 5 years, depending on whether they are a greenfield incubator or whether they're a scale-up incubator. And every incubator would foster 25 to 30 startups every 2 years. So which means over a period of 4 to 5 years, we would have 50 startups coming out. And the idea is 70 to 75% of these startups should be successful. It means they should be able to stand on their own legs and they should be able to scale up. That is what we would define, and we have defined parameters of success for various startups as well as for the incubators. Again, these are all available on the dashboards so that the incubator themselves know how they are performing against expectations. And we run several innovation boot camps along with experts in the industry, along with experts from abroad, so that the incubators get the benefit of how do you successfully run an incubator, how do you make your startups, what is the type of support you have to give, and the startups also know what they have to do in order to become investable, in order to become scalable, and the challenges that are there in a startup cycle. How do you address that?
So now you talked. One, of course, tech has become a major thing, and I think you have done a fantastic way of what Americans have been so successfully done. Take the innovation from the university and bring it to the market, lab to market approach, which helps a lot, opening up innovation. But you talked about greenfield and you talked about scale. I would like to sort of explain how would you categorize both of them?
So a greenfield incubator is an applicant who doesn't have an existing incubator, but who wants to set up an incubator so that they can provide support to startups, either coming from the university or the neighboring landscape, where there are startups who would like to have support being offered by the incubator. So that's greenfield incubator. They don't have an existing incubator and they're setting up a brand new incubator. So they would, using the grant that we give, they will set up a 10,000 to 20,000 square feet of incubator space, working space. They will provide all the infrastructure required for startups to work at a very subsidized rate. They also can use that money to buy special equipment related to their domain focus. So if, for example, they are an agri-tech incubator or they are a biotech incubator, they may get special equipment which is needed by most of the startups, which the startups themselves cannot afford. And also, they would also provide support in bringing mentors, venture capitalists and so on, who will be able to support the startups. A scale-up incubator is one which has already been in existence has grown to a point, and now they would like to scale up from where they are. They want to double their size, and so they have a proven history of performance, and therefore we also encourage in incubators which have already been existing for 3 to 5 years, and now they want to scale up to the next level. So we provide grants for them too.
Yeah. So, and we'll come to, I did interview Dr. V. Premnath from Venture City, and then also Dr. Tasleem and C-SPAN to C-Camp, and how they're doing, and Mr. Manoj Kumar, so both the private sector, and we'll come to public-private partnership also. But before that, we just have, there are various facets of an incubator. You have lab to market approach, very important, which we talked about. Further, there are also collaborations with scientific institutes now, which you are doing both in India and internationally in tech transfer. So there have been significant momentum in the new startups. There are already 622 plus new startups incubated. So that's
we have 1,200 startups.
Now it's around 1,200. Yeah. So please do discuss the pathways to, which you did discuss a bit, but more specifically, how you achieved it in a short period of time, and what do you think is going to be way forward? Are you bringing in international collaborations?
Yeah, so we have already started bringing international collaborations. Actually, we are now working with quite a few countries in this. Take, for example, Singapore. We have an annual event in Singapore called Inspreneur event. They have hosted now 2 events where Atal Innovation Mission has been a strong partner to Inspreneur in Singapore. Here, we take 10 to 15 of our startups from India, and they in this event, so they display their innovations in Singapore. In that event, you have also Singaporean startups who come, 15 to 20 Singaporean startups who will be there. So one is it provides a networking platform for startups from India and startups from Singapore to co-innovate or to form partnerships. You have a number of venture capitalists who will come for these for those investors, potential investors. So they get a chance to be exposed to the startup innovation from India, and many of our startups who have gone there are now also becoming recipients of funding from these investors. Third is we also have, for example, with Sweden, with Trade Business Sweden, we some of the corporate organizations like AstraZeneca wanted to sponsor a challenge to address innovations in the pharma and the healthcare community. And so we launched a challenge with them, and 12 of the startups which made it to the final round, a number of startups applied for those challenges, 12 of them which got selected in the final round, they are now being actively supported by AstraZeneca in multiple ways, in mentoring support, in access to some of their labs for testing their products, in the validation. There may be some co-investment which may be happening. So we are facilitating all of that. A similar initiative is there with the government of France, where in Lyon in this year, 6 of our startups were invited to participate in innovation event. And again, you have a lot of interest from French organizations. And this is growing. So we also enable, we are planning now a VC meet where all the venture capitalists will be invited. Some of the top maybe 50 startups from our ecosystem will have an opportunity to present to them to see how the VC community can support them further. So these collaborations, these partnerships with various organizations, both corporate sector as well as in the institutions like TAI or CII or NASSCOM. These partnerships are very key enablers for our startups to see value in the Atal Incubator and to see value in the Atal Innovation Mission.
You rightly said. I mean, you give very good examples of 3 very important countries. Singapore, very innovative. Sweden is some of the best practices in France. So I think we could get a lot of tech transfer there, and also the best practices could, emerge, and a lot of thinking. And this is just the start of, getting it much more global, faster companies, right? And so when we are talking, what you have also done, something which is so great about what work you're doing, is you're trying to empower women. There are a lot of entrepreneurs today are women, at least coming out from the incubator space.
Yes.
You had more than hundreds, and I know how much it has gone to right now. What are the key policies here? Do you do when you get a proposal, and if it's from a woman entrepreneur, do you sort of give a specific preference? Okay, let's boost them.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that we have tried to encourage in all our initiatives is how do you promote women entrepreneurship, women participation, the girl students participation in tinkering labs, and so on. And I have to say that it's been a very happy outcome out of all of this. 3 of our incubators today focus on exclusively women-led startups and women-led incubation. So there is one in A-Leap in Hyderabad who have 52, I think, startups which are all women-led startups. You have in Banastali in Rajasthan, which is one of the largest women universities, and when they applied, we selected them. Now, and then we have another one in Hyderabad which has been creating livelihood entrepreneurial generation for women entrepreneurs. So more than 6,000 women entrepreneurs, for example, have been created from this incubator in just 2 years. So we do prioritize on a couple of things. One is if there are women-led incubators or women-led startups being sponsored by incubator, we would give that particular incubator special consideration because we do want to promote this. In India, actually the number of women entrepreneurs has slightly dipped over the last couple of years.
But it's but a global phenomenon. I think India is much better than what's happening globally.
But we have a wonderful opportunity to actually leapfrog into a much better space. Second is 70% of our Atal Tinkering Labs are girls or co-ed schools. And interestingly, you will find that in the last Tinkering Marathon, in the top 100 innovation winners, 45% of the winner students were girl students. Yeah. So that is not only a revelation, but a very encouraging thing for all the girls in the community. And not so surprising when you look at it, because girls have a great aptitude for multitasking, going into detail, communication. They are free, they are much more freer than boys to ask questions, seek help, and so on. And therefore, the ability for them to innovate and to create something is much higher. So we have today, just for your information, more than 150 women startups. Niti Aayog is also having a platform called Women Entrepreneurship Platform, WEP.
WEP, right.
Yeah. And the WEP platform, Atal Innovation Mission is a very strong partner in this platform. We induct all our women startups, women incubators, women mentors into this platform too, so that they are accessible to other women entrepreneurs, not necessarily from the Atal Innovation Mission ecosystem, but even beyond.
And now we come to the question you're very passionate about, mentors of change in India. Yeah. So my specific question here is, now we have a lot of registrations. Now you're looking at 2 types of mentors. One who are like subject matter experts, the other are cross-function experts.
Yes.
So how do you have some thinking, okay, these are the type of people we're looking. You had a tremendous experience in technology yourself. You are at leadership positions with multinationals. You have been one of the prime policy makers in technology. I would call you a technology guru and a technocrat who knows exactly what's happening in technology globally, who understands it, whose ability to also have a futuristic view on how it's going to be changing the society. So now here, looking at it, what would you say when you're looking? I do understand it's much more easier to have a function expert in a technology stream, but in other streams, maybe it's not so clear-cut as a winner what you'd be looking at. So is there a thinking here, okay, these are what we want in the matrix?
So, we view mentorship as a key thing that has been missing in India. Actually, many of us have had mentors, but not officially recognized as mentors. Every one of us have been influenced, even in your working life, you're inspired by a few people, but we don't have formal processes by which we engineer the interaction between the mentor and the mentee. And I think, therefore, many of us lose a bit because by greater interaction with a mentor, you are able to solve problems quicker, you're able to understand issues better, you're able to have someone else guide. We are not looking at a mentor as a solution provider. We are looking upon them as a guide, as an enabler to solve the problem. So someone who can show the way. And then it is up to the mentee to be able to pick that up and run with it, right? So, in India, we have a tremendous, we are fortunate that we have a rising population of achievers in our country, professionals. In fact, we have over 4.5 million ITS professionals in our country, technology-based solution providers for the rest of the world. Just imagine, we have only 1.4 million schools in our country. We have 4.5 million professionals. I could easily map, if every person took upon himself or herself, that I will associate myself with one school, one student for mentoring purposes. It could be that school from where they came from, the college where they came from. You'll suddenly have 3 mentors per school. And we need that. They fill a very important gap that we see in our educational system. That in our educational system, still many schools don't have the right qualifications. The teachers don't have the right qualifications. Right. The school doesn't have the right sort of people to guide. And therefore, we launched this mentor network to see that even if you spend 2 to 3 hours in a week with a student associated with a tinkering lab in the nearest school to where you live, you don't have to go and walk long distances. And then, of course, you also have technology to help you. Today, you have digital technology where you can sit down from your home and still mentor a young student. Right?
Yeah, virtual incubation centers. 10,000 startups, so many of the initiatives.
And so when we launched a mentor application portal. We ask for various capabilities of the mentor and where do you want to mentor. So it is not we force mentorship on anybody. First, we ask them, what areas do you think you can mentor? So can you help in general problem solving? Can you help in design thinking? Can you help in a technology? You have knowledge of particular technology. You may be an engineer, so you have knowledge of a technology. In business planning and management, do you want to mentor startups? Do you want to mentor tinkering lab? So this is a very comprehensive form. And we want thousands of mentors to be associated. So people now, in the last round of mentoring application, we invited for mentors for startups and incubators also. And we've got over 3,000 applications for that. And they're all professionals and good achievers. So we'll be mapping them to our incubators and startups. But we still need more. And I think this is a wonderful way of giving back. I mean, when I was growing up, whenever I said I want to give back to society, I didn't know what is the avenue available for me to give back.
You opened the doors actually for people to come, and that's the most. I myself want to be a mentor, and I think I've applied, and I will be a major part. Do whatever best, and and I think that is what a lot of people want to spread. You've gone through various stages. You put in, policies where you're taking them earlier on. Then you've got incubators. You're getting seed. Getting them funded. Looking at the business plan. Getting subject matter experts. Tying up with top universities and being as a part of being in leading universities in India. Right. Who are in engineering space or other sectors. Now, as we look at all the enablers, now we come to something which you are doing also ahead, which is the Atal New India, where you're identifying problems and addressing them through the commercial value of death. Now, this is the second value which you opened initially, of course, lack of funding. Second is how you successfully commercialize your idea, which where maybe a bit of lab to market also comes in here, specifically for tech part. Now, when you're looking, AIM is actually sponsoring 1 CR, which is $140,000, but this is not adjusted to purchasing price parity, the double of what it takes to build products of national and social causes. Now, this is really, because we'll come to social entrepreneurship, which is also getting funded through it. You talked about a bit, and we have talked about. So now this policy has two deep social impacts, which I talked about. One is, of course, you're trying to build for the first time, I feel in India, there's a surge of thinking that let's build technology products, let's go towards a product focus rather than service focus. Correct. Now that is very important when you want to become of a country which is like really the top end of the world in terms of going up higher up in the technology scale. Second, what you're doing is like you're invigorating the social entrepreneurship sector, because that's how the social causes, if you're trying to map sort of what's the common area between a technology and a social. So do talk about your global partnerships with foreign governments. You did talk about Singapore, and of course you also have a tie with Japan, which you talked about what you're doing with Sweden and France, which is, and we'll also take in how they are sort of defining a lot of international reforms. But both domestic and global partnerships with private players, you talked a lot about them, academia, foundations. Now there's a commendable initiative with Japanese government in biotechnology sector. I think the idea is to sort of invigorate 100 startups in India in very specific ways. So do elaborate on a few more. You've already elaborated very specific, and what milestones you're looking at this sector. Like, are you very specific looking, okay, this is what we want and this is what our target is, and we want to achieve that?
So there are two initiatives that are, one is already been launched and the other is work in progress. Both of which address the questions that you raised. One is the Atal New India Challenges. The Atal New India Challenges is an initiative where we are working closely with the ministries and with the industry in identifying challenges. You see, Atal Tinkering Labs creates an innovative mindset. Atal Incubators provides an ecosystem for startups. This initiative, Atal New India Challenges, is to stimulate product innovation or service innovation. And you can create products for enabling services also.
This is also on a mass scale. Like you go out to the people, reach out to them, okay, not being part, but still you come to us and, like a pull factor.
It's like a pull factor. So what we are doing is, we launch challenges along with the ministries. So we selected 5 ministries, for example, in the first round of applications. Ministry of Drinking Water and Sanitation, Ministry of Road and Transportation, Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Railways, as well as Ministry of Healthcare. So we launch challenges in these 24 challenges. We said that if you have a proof of concept, a prototype, and a patented innovation, then you can apply. So this is because many innovators come to a point where they are not able to commercialize their product, or they are not able to take it for true social impact. And they need certain amount of financial support as well as mentoring and incubation support to be able to cross that bridge. So we got more than 950 applications. We have selected 52 of them where we are giving 1 crore of grant to be able to take it as a product which will be either commercial, or it can be a product for societal impact, which is being supported by an NGO or whatever, etc. We want to encourage both social entrepreneurs as well as commercial entrepreneurs through this process. When we select these 52 winners whom we have selected, we are then latching them on to incubators for additional support. So it is not just a grant being given and then we leave it at that. We want to make sure that their product sees the light of the day, and we also try to get the buy-in from the ministry. If the ministry is able to pilot that product and buy that product or buy that service enabled through the product, because we want to encourage both product creation and service enablement through the product creation. So it could be both. And India has a lot of knowledge workers, service entrepreneurs. I mean, Uber is a great example, or Ola is a great example of how you can use technology for increasing job employment. So we encourage both of that. Now, so this is the Atal New India Challenge Initiative, and we are working with multiple ministries, and we'll be scaling this up in the next 1 or 2 years. This will create thousands of innovators and enable them to commercialize their product, which has always been a gap in our system. The second is what we call as ARISE initiative, which is Applied Research and Innovation for Small Enterprises. This is yet to be launched. It will be launched in the month of April, I guess, or April or May. Here, what we are doing is we break the problem into 2 parts. It is modeled along the US SBIR program, the Small Business Innovation Research. US
and I read about, just to also share before you really go, and that was a separate question, and good you brought about. So when you're talking about its micro, small and medium enterprises, it actually contributes 29% of a GDP.
Absolutely.
And 40% of the jobs. And there's a huge thrust also in this space, man, where you are going to take it to 50% to build the $5 trillion economy and create 50 million jobs. And to get the significance of MSME segment is the largest segment. In Canada, it's about 99%, one of the biggest segments in Europe.
Correct. So as you rightly pointed out, the MSME segment needs to be supported and needs to boost its productivity, its innovation capability. We are still importing a whole lot of stuff which need not be imported. So how can the MSME play a role in import substitution? How can it also leverage the emerging technologies for export creation? So this both are the aspects. So what we have done is we studied the best practices in various countries, in the United States, in the UK, in Germany, the best practices in various countries in the study. And then we have come up with the ARISE model, where there will be two phases. Phase one will be to take research and convert it into prototypes. So through the challenge mechanism, we'll throw challenges which we will work out with the ministry and industry. And we will say that for these challenges, do you have a research idea, a mature research idea, which can be converted into a prototype? So that's phase one. And if you are able to successfully convert into prototype, we'll give a grant of up to 1 crore for converting the research idea into a prototype. And second phase is that those who successfully complete the prototype, they can apply for the second phase, which is converting the prototype to a product. So it could go the ANIC route, Atal New India Challenge route, or we could separately fund this through the help of ministries as well as through our partners. So the whole idea is to take also research ideas, which are, there has been a lot of focus on basic research, but we want to encourage universities to do applied research and make sure that research ideas have an end product in mind or an end service in mind, rather than just focusing on writing a paper and getting a PhD for that subject.
Yeah. So, and you talked about a lot of countries you did. Did you also look at Scandinavia and France? I'm sure you looked at it. Yes. Because they have a very vibrant model also in social sector. They've been very, especially in education space. One of the best innovative practices which you are doing, and which you talked about also public-private partnership. And I did interview Ruchi Mathur in Pune Study Connect. They're also trying to, get the new through the public-private partnerships.
Right.
So I'll come to that as a next question. But what were the key takeaways when you did look at how best we can also put some of those models in the short sector, you think?
So, every country has something to learn from. Finland has supposed to be one of the finest in educational systems. But the challenges in India are very different from many of the challenges in the advanced countries. In the advanced countries, you already have the benefit of great infrastructure. You have the benefit of smaller populations. And you have the benefit of I would say advanced technologies that are already available and which have been deployed. In India, we have challenges related to access, infrastructure. We also have challenges related to our availability of qualified teachers and so on and so forth. So we need to use, actually these emerging technologies and digital technology can play a big role in filling many of these gaps, which is what we are trying to see how we can do that. For example, if 7 million children in India are disabled. Provide fair access to education to all these 7 million. 1.7% of our children force is are differently abled, and we don't have very good systems still today to address that. We also have almost 32 million children who don't even go to schools because of lack of maybe infrastructure and accessibility and so on. So these are also challenges that we have to look at. So we have to evolve our own methodologies. We have to evolve our own best practices of how do we take all these challenges and convert them into solutions. And so while we keep learning from all of these, for example, we are partnering with UN, UNICEF as well as UNDP in many initiatives in the country to promote and innovation as well as education.
Another very important policy undertaking which you are taking is Atal Community Innovation Center, ACIC, which you call it. And this is very specifically targeted at upliftment of underserved communities in India, specifically in Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. You talked about Jammu and Kashmir, Northeast, that's where you're trying to really help them. Rural and tribal areas and urbanly focused smart cities, which comes under Amrit program. Now, you're taking a lot of initiatives in removing inequalities within the society, alleviating poverty through specifically social innovation. The last few years have seen not only innovation coming, it comes specifically also in social innovation. Right. And right at the bottom of the pyramid, which is where we need to address, which is bothly affecting the rural and semi-rural areas. Now, you have one great example here, which is also goes in public-private partnership, is like Rockefeller Foundation. It is doing fantastic job with solar sector with Tata Trust, which is the formative, foundation in India, which is doing so much of good work. Now, AIM plans to establish about 50 ACICs, as we call it, in next 2 years. Yeah. Would you like to sort of also take us through anything which you feel in public-private partnership or skilling initiatives which you're taking, to skill up people? There are a lot of companies now coming and skilling, and which is in the blue-collar segment, which are going. Just to give an example, which, doing a fantastic job, like vocational training taken, which are planned ahead. And if there are a lot of these initiatives never been done before, which are done. Second would be, how do you conjure up this bottom-up approach also? You've got the top-down, you're going to do the also bottom, you're going to do the mid-sector. How did you come up with these groundbreaking global sustainability practices, which not only can be scaled up, which can be replicated, we can become a role model of a lot of things we are doing in sub-Saharan sector or in, in a lot of other places, which can easily...
So, as we rolled out these initiatives, we realized that many of the innovation initiatives are easily become realities in the tier 1 cities and the metro cities, because there is a lot of awareness of the need as well as the infrastructure which is available. And we wanted to make sure that the benefits of innovation actually also are felt by people who are living in the tier 2, tier 3 cities, in the rural, hilly coastal districts, in underserved regions of our country. Even if you take a city like Mumbai, you go a little beyond Mumbai, you go to the Nalasopara or you go to Bhayandar and so on, you suddenly find the lack of access of infrastructure and enablers for innovation. They all have to depend upon some university in the metro and so on and so forth. And these don't still address the problems that the local community faces. If it is in a farming area, if it is in a rich biodiversity area, how do we harness the core capabilities that the people have in that place, as well as the environment provides, in order to create and stimulate innovation which will be useful to the people. So we came up with the concept of community innovation centers. These community innovation centers would be in partnership with an industry partner or an NGO. There are multiple stakeholders. And typically what we think is that the best stakeholders will be the local industry, because the local industry always is interested in employment of the local people, skilling up of the local people in what that industry around. If it is an agro industry area, then how do you stimulate innovations in the agro industry? So these 50 community innovation centers will all be in the underserved regions of the country. It will have 5 broad purposes. Number 1, it becomes a place where if there is an innovation for local communities that is happening elsewhere, that can get replicated here and that can get scaled up here. Number 1. Number 2, if you have Jugaad innovations, which is very popular in India, which happens in a particular community area, how do we take these Jugaad innovations and convert it into systemic, replicable, scalable innovations using technology and using a robust process through innovators who can be encouraged to do that? So that's the second. Third, it can also become a pre-incubation area for coming up with, we can throw challenges through these community innovation centers, that these are the local challenges and do you have any solution addressing this challenge? And a whole number of innovators from neighboring universities or even from the metro cities can say, hey, we have a solution for this challenge, and then these challenges can be selected and they can be piloted to be implemented in these innovation centers. If they are successful, then we can replicate it and scale it. Fourth, it builds a skilling capability. So actually we have said the local ITIs, the local schools, there would be an advanced tinkering lab type of facility within the community innovation center, where the local ITIs, the local schools, the local engineers or local people can get trained on skills which are vocational skills needed to support entrepreneurship in that particular environment. And fifth, successful innovators who come out of it can then become startups in our mature incubation centers, and we will provide the a pipeline of such innovators who have social innovation capabilities and who have come up with social innovation solutions, and make them as incubators in our mature incubators, so that they are able to scale up and they are able to become large companies.
Okay, thanks. Now, we quickly come to two questions which arise on it.
And in this, I just want to add, we have already had more than 400 to 500 applications in our first ask for who would like to partner, and they're all willing to put in the money and create the Community Innovation Center. And we are very hopeful that these 50 Community Innovation Centers will be set up very quickly and will start delivering value to the local communities.
Good. So there's a lot of buy-in, and that was the next question. Is like, government has done so much, and how do we change the mindset that maybe the private sector comes in good? But you're saying that already you have seen a huge, maybe the CSR policy is also boosting as an enabler that, okay, you come in, a lot has been done. It's time for the private sector to come in and be in the game.
Yeah, and this is very, if I look at AIM over the next 5 years, how it can evolve. One is it should inspire ideas and it should inspire innovation in our people. Second is it should be an enabler for implementation of pilot initiatives like Atal Tinkering Labs and mentoring. These are all various initiatives. You pilot them to a point where they can scale with the help of partnerships with the state, with the corporates, with private sector, and so on. So one is the inspiration of new ideas, innovation ideas. Second is the enablement of implementations and scale up of those implementations. And the third is AIM should be the link. They should provide the bridge for a number of stakeholders, whether it is industry, whether it is research institutions of the country, or whether it is the public sector organizations, or the ministries. We should provide the link between the startups and the innovation ecosystem, the demands, the needs, as well as the solutions that are available or can be developed.
So, and before I come to the last question, now this one question does come to mind. We have so many policies, they're all well integrated towards each other. So how are you driving it? What's the broader framework? If all these arms, they are all like a wheel is, turning around. These are all aspects which is turning the wheel.
Right.
So how do you best sort of communicate with all these sectors and put the foundation in?
Yeah, so there is a lot of communication that needs to be done. Awareness building has to be done. We are constantly looking at multiple forums and multiple platforms to enable that. Clearly, social media, the World Wide Web, and these communication platforms are important. But more importantly, we want each of our entities, whether it is a tinkering lab, whether it is a incubator, to start creating networks among themselves. So we want to create the network of networks, and that is what will make this whole thing sustainable. For example, we have on the Community Day, Atal Community Day, which is on the day of the birth of Baba Saheb Ambedkar. We hold a National Community Day where every Atal Tinkering Lab actually invites schools who don't have an Atal Tinkering Lab to their premise, and also students who are not part of the formal sector. And they all come together to understand what Atal Tinkering Lab is all about, so that they get excited. They want to set up their own tinkering labs. Community tinkering labs can be initiated, and so on. Similarly, incubators are encouraged to form networks and plug into that network.
A lot of focus on the technology. Just one question which keeps coming in mind. How are you going to also, to make an absolutely well-rounded technology, the social aspect is very important. One is leveraging technology for the social sector. That's good. But how do you also bring in more policies to boost startups in the social sector?
Yeah. So, yes, this is something that we are constantly seeking feedback from our network of incubators, schools, and so on and so forth. What are some of the policy recommendations that will enable their growth and promote ease of doing business, ease of establishment, ease of startups to be able to grow. And then we work closely with Startup India and with other entities, Invest India and so on, in helping formulate the policies or in refining the policies which are already existing. And this is the policy part is a very important enabler in the entire ecosystem. And so we are very closely working with all the entities to come up with regularly suggestions and ideas on what new can be done. Of course, Niti Aayog is a think tank, and through Niti Aayog, many of these policies get communicated. Mr. Amitabh Kant and Rajiv Kumar ji, who are the CEO and the VC, they actively are involved in coordinating with the verticals and seeing what policies can enable innovation for them too.
Right. So actually, okay, so there is a way, and maybe we'll see more renewed face in terms of incubators coming
Absolutely.
in. Only,
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks. Now,
and many of the policies that have been changed over the last 2-3 years, you would see quite a few of them very positively.
Very positively towards no doubt. So that's why. But maybe a little bit more focus on social sector. Maybe technology is not making
Absolutely.
difference.
Absolutely.
That
it
could
is very
be one
important.
motive.
In a country like India, social innovation, social entrepreneurship is extremely important, and we want to make sure that the right thrust is there. Because unless you bridge the inequality gaps, it will not be sustainable.
Now I come to the last question, which always is there from the middle road. What is that aha moment for you? You have done so much. I mean, in the sense there's been a exponential change ever since Niti Aayog, Mr. Modi's government has come in. There's an exponential change in many aspects of business, and innovation in startups, MSE and other sectors is one of them. And there's no doubt about it. It's been a total transformation. And you have been involved in so many aspects of formation. But what is that aha moment which comes to your mind, which you say, okay, wow, this lightens my day, something which is from the recent past, which you think, or maybe going forward, which if there's something which you're looking forward to, really? Anything which you, there'll be multiple of things. I think you could talk about multiple things.
Actually, every day I find an aha moment. And I guess that's what motivates me on a daily basis. There's something that you start seeing which is happening, and you marvel at it. You see a young student in a tinkering lab creating. The other day I was in Sikkim, and 2 young students from school have created a device for measuring. You know, in Sikkim, for example, the problem is when the gas cylinder runs out of gas, the ability for them to contact the gas cylinder company and replace the gas, and for them to deliver in a timely fashion because of the hilly area and so on, is very difficult. So for a couple of days there is no gas, and if you don't have gas in a household, then you have a problem in terms of being able to cook or whatever problems are there. So these 2 young students have come up with a device, an IoT enabled device, which will measure at any point in time the volume of gas that is remaining based upon the weight, and they also have a device on which they make it easy for it to roll around and get transported. And they have also integrated a gas leak detector in the device, an IoT based device. And now the gas company is looking at it very actively, of being able to sell all their gas cylinders along with this device. And that was an aha moment for me that day, that, you know, how come nobody has thought about integrating a gas detector, gas leak detector, and the volume, and a message gets automatically transmitted when the volume of gas goes down to a certain point, to a certain threshold, to the owner as well as to the company. And so the replacement of the gas cylinder is on time or before time.
Oh, that's a lovely thing, and kids doing it, and that's like you talk about IoT and how the sensors, the whole system is working.
So, for me, the Atal Innovation Mission has been a wonderful exposure to what is possible through innovation and entrepreneurship in our country, and also a great appreciation of the need for the same. You know, when you're working in a corporate sector, you are very focused on the corporate's revenue, profitability, turnover, etc., etc. You start becoming very exclusive in your thinking. You start focusing on the best returns of the investment that you are making in your marketing, in your customer segmentation approach, and so on. In the government, you have to become very inclusive. You have to, whatever you are doing is still tip of the iceberg. If you think of setting up in 5,000 schools, adult tinkering labs, You have to see how can I set it up in 500,000 schools. And that's a different approach, and it calls for a different mindset. It calls for a daily looking into what can we do to make all of this happen.
I think you shared a very wonderful aspect, which is known as well-being, which maybe New Zealand has incorporated, and in Denmark. It's like, you're right, making it that its economics is not the barometer. I mean, well-being is, and how to make it more inclusive, how to build a community. And I think that's what's being done for the last 5 years. And we're in a tremendous path, tremendous moment to make it, so go to levels which it's not been gone before. So thanks for, taking a lot of time. Innovation Mission is implementing world-beating policies, I'll say, for India to become a global leader. And I should share my best wishes for your future endeavors. Thank you for giving me time and speaking at length.
Thank you so much for the patience, as well as in asking all the questions that you did. I loved sharing it. And I do look forward to more and more people joining the innovation bandwagon that our country needs.
Yeah, I think there are so many people out there, and
Thank you.
We're just on the right track.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.